You're listening to hashtag No Filter with Zack Peter. That's me, your naturally platinum blonde pop culture connoisseur. I'm the reality TV junkie, self-improvement addict, and host with only the hottest tea spilled fresh all week long.
You're one of my favorite interviewers.
They picked us because we're horny.
Yeah,
right.
And that's your chronic state.
24/7.
Zack, that is really funny.
From the latest news on the Real Housewives, deep dives into celebrity legal scandals, and unfiltered convos with your favorite stars, I've got you covered. And yes, I always keep receipts. All right, welcome on in, everybody. You are in for a real treat today. We have so much that's been going on in the reality TV world, but I feel like today we're hopefully going to maybe get a little more clarity, get a little more insight. I feel like I needed somebody that's a lot more intuitive than myself, and maybe a little more intuitive than some of us with our theories on the Twitter. So he's known as the Housewives Empath. He's the host of Deep Dive with Jamie Stein. Please welcome Mr. Jamie Stein.
Hi, Zack. Hi, everyone.
How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm excited to chat with you. This is long overdue. I feel like, you're going to have some really good takes on Housewives and on just like all of the tabloids that we've been keeping up with. I want a little more deeper insight, more than like the superficial conversations that we're all texting about on the group thread.
Fair enough. I hope I can deliver.
Well, I was listening to your episode on Kyle and Mauricio, which I found to be super insightful. What is your read on them? I know Erika Jayne has recently come out and she was saying that they're not actually split and that they're trying to work things out. What is your read on Kyle and Mauricio's situation right now? Are they together, or do you believe that maybe they're taking a little space?
Look, going off very limited information, because all the information I have is the same information you have. I don't know these people personally, but no, based on what I've gathered from the show and from my own intuitive threads, I tend to believe what they're saying, which is that they're at an impasse in their relationship. They're questioning things, they're sorting things out. I've always felt that they do love each other and that there's a baseline of love there. I still feel that for them. So I trust and believe the story that they are perhaps separated. They're exploring what that might look like, but nothing's definitive. And they're perhaps seeing where things are going to go.
What's your take on Kyle right now? I feel like she's going through some sort of identity crisis.
Yeah, as you know, I talked about this on my podcast. I think that she's in a time of a lot of change. Number one, kids leaving the house. I think Portia's soon gone. So she's someone who's really defined herself as a mother and a wife and a mom. Family, very important to her. Having a full house of kids, very important to her. Suddenly there's an empty house, so that right there is a huge shift. I also think personally, the Housewives, look, I know it's still going strong. I know Beverly Hills is doing well in the ratings, but there is this sense, I think, of the writing being on the wall. And I think especially for her, she's been on the show for, since the first season, right? She's just filmed her 13th season. I have to imagine / I have personally sensed, especially in the last season or two, kind of this part of Kyle that maybe wonders, questions how much longer she has in her. It's felt very much like she's been doing her job the last few seasons, where if you think about her earlier in the show, I felt like her heart was really in it. Her sister was on the show with her. Like her emotions really felt on the line in the early years, whereas in the last few years, to me, it's felt much more like she's been playing the role of producer. And so for me, I kind of always wonder, like, where is she in relationship to the show? Is she kind of feeling the home stretch? So that's another potential change. And then, as a lot of other people have pointed out too, she's gotten sober in the last year. So that's also another huge thing. Now, whether that was prompted by a deeper level of introspection in her, or whether the sobriety came first and perhaps prompted the deeper level of introspection, I don't know. But there are these threads, I think, that are showing up in her life that I think, to me, it would make sense why she'd be looking around, questioning things, when a lot of the stuff that she's put her value in, her being a mom, being a real housewife, that kind of pop culture success, she said this on Instagram, like, I'm a year sober, I've realized I'm still fun. So there may have been a part of her that felt like, yeah, I drink, I have fun, I'm a party girl. It just feels like a lot of the things that she's maybe been really invested in for a sense of identity and a sense of self have come to a head, where maybe now she's looking around and saying, oh, wait, these things I've defined myself by, maybe they weren't filling me up in the way I thought they would fill me up, or they're coming to an end. And now I really have to take stock of where I am in life and what's actually important to me.
And what about Mauricio? Do you feel like he's going through that same sort of identity crisis? Or do you think, my read is that she's going through this identity crisis, but he's kind of fully distracted on work and on the agency. And I don't even think he saw this side of Kyle coming. I think he was like, life's perfect. Life's great. The kids are growing up. Business is booming. Beautiful wife. She's doing well. She's successful. And now he's like, whoa, wait a minute. What's going on? When did you change on me?
Yeah, I agree. Like that's my guess. That would be my intuitive hunch. I think Mauricio, left to his own devices, probably would have been very comfortable going on automatic pilot for a while. And I think when you ask that question, yeah, what immediately comes to me is Kyle's kind of forcing him, to reevaluate now. And I don't even know to what degree he's doing it. I think Kyle's really interesting because she's someone who, it's interesting to me that of the three sisters, between her, Kim, and Kathy, Kyle always feels like the one who's trying to get something to come to the surface, sometimes passive aggressively, so she is the one who will snap and say, Kim, you're an alcoholic, now everyone knows. She's the one who will create the TV show based on their life. I always feel in Kyle, there's this part of her, even though she, I think, typically does keep things repressed and she toes the line and she stays in these codependent dynamics with people, I've always felt there's a part of her that also wants the truth to come out and wants to have deeper relationships with people. So to me, it kind of makes sense in a way that Kyle would be the one in the marriage now to be taking stock, to be pumping the brakes, and to be saying, no, wait a second, we got to kind of take a look at what's going on here. And then, yeah, Mauricio kind of has to catch up and sort of navigate how far he's willing to go.
I feel like that's why she didn't really defend Kathy when Rinna was coming out about the Aspen stuff, is because she's like, you're right, she does kind of want the truth to come out. And I think she kind of, as much as she wanted to protect her relationship with her sister, she was probably like, Kathy is kind of this person. And that's where you see me in the finale, where I said, I think Kathy really is a monster behind the scenes. Obviously, that was said with hyperbole, but I just, I feel like Kathy probably does have this other side of her. And that's probably why, very similarly to Kim in the earlier seasons, when Kyle's like, Kim, I can't defend you when you behave like this. It's like she didn't want to defend Kathy because she knows that Kathy does have that side of her. Maybe she didn't witness it that night, but if Rinna witnessed it, it probably wasn't so far out of character for what Kyle has experienced with Kathy in the past.
Oh yeah, for sure. There's never been a part of me that questioned whether or not that happened. And yeah, I agree with you.
Twitter will disagree with you though. Twitter tends to think they're right.
Well, I think Twitter is pretty naive about and by the way, this is not even instead of judgment of Kathy. I mean, she is who she is.
Yeah.
But she's a wealthy, out of touch white woman. I mean, of course, you know what I mean? Of course, this is who she is. But regardless, that aside, I think, it's interesting because I think with Kyle, I feel it two ways. I actually feel in Kyle, and by the way, I'm saying this as someone who I definitely do not consistently love Kyle over the years. And in fact, initially, she was probably one of the most triggering housewives for me. Like in the early seasons when she was meaner, I think she softened a lot. And over the years, I have seen her have a capacity for self-reflection. And in getting to know her, I do feel her heart in a lot of places. So I'm always up and down about her. But what I will say about her is I do feel like with Kathy, for example, in last season, I think fundamentally Kyle wants to be in deep, loving relationship with the people in her life. And I can feel the part of Kyle that if Kathy would just come out and say, I mean, whether in private or in public, just come out and say, you know what, Kyle, yes, I did this. Yes, there's a part of me that like hates you or hated you. This is where it comes from. I feel like Kyle would be willing to be in the trenches of relationship with her sisters or whomever for the sake of like greater healing and getting into deeper connection. And that's where I feel there's a part of her that's like, can't we just address the truth, right? And I also feel like over the years, she's taken a lot of shit too. And she also knows there's no room for that kind of truth telling in their family system, because it feels clear, you know, Big Kathy created a system in this family where it's like, we do not talk about shit. And I think Kathy and Kim really abide by that. And I think in that place, Kyle has taken a lot on. We saw it last season. Like Kathy managed to blame her for the whole situation. So I think Kyle's torn, because I think there's a part of her that wants the truth out, one, for vindication, like that little like sister in her that's like, it's not fair and I want this to be seen and heard. But I do want to say, I think underneath that, she does actually have a desire for genuine connection. And I think that's what kills her, is that she knows if she gets really clear about what's been going on in these relationships and she really starts to draw firm boundaries, you know, I think her sisters would totally, you know, cut her off. And I think it's like devastating for her. So I think part of her wants this out in public, because it's almost like this voice. It's like, if we can just get this out there, it'll force them to deal with the truth. And then maybe we can actually have like a healthy family system.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's hard because you have seen Kathy cut her off in the past, and Kathy can be so cold that I think she just wants to keep the peace, but she also, I agree, very much wants the truth to be out there. And that's why it's so weird, the whole Housewives fandom, is because it becomes like this, like we lose touch with reality because we like pick teams, right? And it's like either you're for this person or you're against this person, and it's like you can't say, hey, maybe Kathy really is this way. Because I've kind of felt like that. Like, she is out of touch. She is very uber wealthy, that it's like, I can see that's not a far stretch if she does behave that way, and that she's always had people to protect her. Now, me saying that, people are like, oh, well, you're just a blind Rinna stan, and Rinna's evil, and Rinna just wants to take down Kathy. And I'm like, guys, it's not like, I don't know, people treat it so much like a football team, and you're either on my team or, you know, I'm going to beat you up in the parking lot.
Well, let me bring in this point of view. I was 100% disturbed by the way that Rinna weaponized what happened. I thought what Rinna did was dark. It really disturbed me. And I 100% believe her that it happened. So yeah, I mean, to your point,
and that's the thing. You can be in the middle and see both sides of it, but it's like you can't really articulate one or the other without one side of the fandom like ripping you apart for that. It's like you can't be somewhere in the middle in this Housewives world.
Especially with Beverly Hills, I find the fandom gets very polarized, which is very interesting to me. But yeah, that's not how life works. I mean, we don't live in a world of bad guys and good guys. We're human beings. It's complex. We're co-creating our relationships. And there's tons of history behind every single one of these relationships, because everyone's just coming from their own perspective, you know? So, you know, their loss, Zach.
Yes, I agree. But do you think that there's an opportunity for Kyle and Mauricio to come back together? Or do you think at this point it may be best for them to kind of just part ways and find themselves now?
I mean, it's a tough question. I mean, again, I do not know these people at all, but if I just kind of follow my hunch based on what I'm feeling in this moment, look, this is what I think it's hard. This is what I'm concerned for. So this is what I feel very supportive of whatever Kyle's doing right now. It does feel like there's some level of, yes, introspection, slowing down, taking stock. Sobriety in and of itself, I think, is amazing. So good for her. Where I get concerned is that, and I don't exactly know what's going on with this, but for someone who seems to have a relationship with codependent relationships, it seems she's in some other sort of deeply intense emotional affair / whatever that is with this woman. So that's a little bit concerning. Like, is she really doing the deep inner work? And then there's also this question too of, like we were saying, to what degree is Mauricio capable of meeting her here? So it really feels to me like this is an instance where I feel like, I think in an ideal world, maybe there would be a separation where they're both single, they're both doing their inner work, they're both getting really clear on their relationship to themselves, and then from there seeing if they can meet back in the middle, because I do think that there's love between. I think that's part of why this has been upsetting for people. It's like you can feel it. There's love there. So it's just kind of a question of whether once they really find out the deeper truth of who they are, what they want, what they need in a relationship, can they be that for each other? And I don't think they'll know that until there's a little bit more space.
Yeah, I agree. I think they need to, this is like a forced awakening for them, right? Not just in their relationship, but I think individually. Kyle's going through this awakening herself, which is now forcing Mauricio to kind of look inward. Now we see him go into the gym and posting his thirst traps because he's now being like, holy shit, do I keep my wife? Like, what do I do? I didn't realize that she was even 1 foot out the door. And I also am a little concerned with her relationship with Morgan. Do I think that they're scissoring on the weekends? No, but I do think that there is a deep level of emotional connection there. And my concern is I think oftentimes people will do this where they invest in somebody else emotionally and then they unlock Pandora's box and they tap into their emotions and they don't realize that they're playing with somebody else's emotions because they're trying to deal with their own emotions, but they like the comfort of getting the attention that they're getting from somebody else. And I think maybe that's possibly what's going on with Kyle and Morgan is she's using Morgan as a vehicle to get the validation and the attention and the emotional needs that she is not getting from Mauricio.
Well, and it's also interesting because as you speak, what comes to me, and again, I don't know what's going on in that relationship. I don't know what Kyle's relationship is to her sexuality, if there is an attraction to women, if there's not, but let's just assume she's mostly heterosexual. What I also pick up on is the possibility of, to your point, getting maybe a deeper level of emotional needs met, but in this way that maybe has like a built-in buffer or safety because it's not going to be a full-on intimate committed love affair because it's a woman. So it's sort of like she's almost pivoted. If we, what I was talking about in my podcast for your listeners' information is I was sort of talking about how I felt Mauricio may have worked for her because I experienced him as like emotionally shut down. So she can kind of get the hot husband who supports her, but like there's kind of a comfort almost in the emotional shallowness. Now she's reached a point where she's like, wait, actually that doesn't work for me anymore. I want emotional connection. Let me go over to this woman who maybe isn't going to meet me fully, sexually, intimately in all those ways, but I'm getting the emotional needs met. And it's like, well, what's going on here, Kyle? Is there a way in which there's a part of you that's pulling back from like the full integrated connection of someone who can meet you, who can check all the boxes, basically, if that makes sense?
No, yeah. And I loved how in your podcast episode on Kyle and Mauricio, you talk about, you relate it back to Big Kathy. And we've read House of Hilton, the book about the girls growing up and their mother, Big Kathy, and how she very much raised them to be about the optics and the image. And as long as everything looks good and you have all the metrics hit, you're good and you're supposed to be happy and fulfilled, right? And I think Kyle's at the place where she's like, I had everything. I did everything that I was supposed to do, and it's not really fulfilling me in the way that I thought that it was supposed to. And I also think being on reality television forces you to kind of see yourself. It's that figurative mirror that we all talk about, but when you're filmed and your life gets put out there in that way, that becomes an actual mirror. And one thing that I think you made an interesting point of as well is that we never really see Kyle and Mauricio's issues or see them working through anything. And at first I was like, you're right. And I think initially to a blind eye, that may seem like, oh, well, maybe they're hiding their issues. But to your point, I think it really does look like not that they're hiding or masking their issues, but that they don't go deep enough to actually have those types of issues because it really just is all image.
Yeah, it feels that way. People on my Instagram brought up an interesting point where they were like, well, we also haven't seen that, for example, between Lisa and Ken, which is true, but there's a way for me in which Lisa and Ken over the years, like you just feel them as partners in like in business and work, like every step of the way, like Lisa and Ken feel like this united front. For me personally, I don't ever quite experience Mauricio and Kyle quite in that same way. And actually going back to your point about like, where's Mauricio at? It's like, it feels almost like he's just getting started with, like the agency's taken off. Now he has his own show, like he's really on his own treadmill of like achieving. So yeah, it does kind of feel like almost like I don't know if I want to say two ships passing in a night, but it's like they've got their sort of separate tracks where they were both achieving a lot for themselves sort of separately, and then kind of supporting, like you're saying, the sort of the optics of what they're co-creating together, and what they're creating separately works for the shared picture, but it also is felt separate. And then, yeah, it feels like Kyle has reached a point where she's ready to slow the train down, whereas Mauricio's train is kind of just picking up steam.
Yeah. I'm curious, did you see Erika Jayne meeting with the victims over the weekend?
I did, yeah, I did.
What were your thoughts on that?
It made me really happy. I mean, look, this isn't a popular, well, I don't know what your audience is like. Typically, this isn't a popular opinion. I always have this strange soft spot for Erika. I understand why people get frustrated with her. I understand how it looks a lot of times. I get her pride. I feel like is her own worst enemy. She is one stubborn woman. I feel the you in her, which even as I say that's part of my soft spot for her. I kind of like the defiant contrarian in me, kind of likes the part of her that says fuck you. But sort of to get back to your point, the part of the reason I have a soft spot for her is I've always felt underneath, I always feel her vulnerability. I always feel her humanity. And I think I've always felt the part of her too that feels misunderstood. And I've always felt like that's the part of her that fuels that like sort of rageful voice that's like, oh, you want me to act like this? Well, fuck you, I'm not going to, which then just keeps her stuck in that cycle of being misunderstood. So I've always had this strange soft spot for her. So I think to see her having that moment, and from what I've seen online, the victims I think have spoken up and said, look, she apologized, it felt heartfelt, it changed the way I saw her. I'm going to trust that. And to me, it just felt good to see that this other aspect of Erika, like I said, that I've sensed in her, has had a chance to live. And, so to me, it looked whole and healthy and healing.
As somebody that was there, I can say it was whole and healthy and healing for everyone, because I see a lot of chatter online about people saying that this was an orchestrated publicity stunt. And I want to be very clear that the press was not invited to this event. Any of us that went to support the launch of the ice cream, which was Kimberly Archie's line, and she's come out and she's said this wasn't a PR event, this wasn't orchestrated in any way. It was always going to be happening regardless if Erika came or not. The LA Times was always going to be at this event because they're separately working on their own project with with Kimberly, and so the LA Times was really the only press that was there present for the event, that was invited. And Erika agreeing to even being on camera with the LA Times, that was kind of like a last minute decision. She really just wanted to come to the event to support and have an opportunity to have FaceTime with the victims that were going to be there. All of these things were already happening. And then it was like Erika was a last minute addition and piece. And I think that it was a great opportunity to have some sort of face-to-face connection and healing for everyone. And everybody seemed to have left that day feeling some sort of, maybe not full resolve and maybe not full closure, but okay, we can breathe and we can take a step forward and hopefully, move forward in a more positive direction that can hold the people accountable.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is sort of what's always been crazy to me about this, when people sort of have rushed to judgment about her and what she's saying or not saying. For me, I mean, and this to me just
okay, they're fucking morons, okay, Jamie? They're literally judgmental assholes that have never been in a position like that and would probably shit their pants if they were ever in a position like that. And they're like, I want to return the earrings. Fuck off. You not to justify her keeping the earrings or whatever, but it's just nobody knows what it's like to be in that position until you're actually in this position. And that's where I will shout out Sheree, Garcelle's friend, when Garcelle's like, she didn't want to give back the earrings, and Sheree's like, girl, you would just tell me you would give back the earrings? Come on, get in touch with reality. Not to say that it's what, I don't know what I would do in that position, but I'm just saying people are too quick to judge without putting themselves in somebody else's shoes and realizing the magnitude of the situation.
Well, my whole thing was just guys, there's legality to this.
Thank you.
I mean, this feels, I mean, I almost never say this because I'm like, isn't this obvious? This should just be 101. She is in the middle. I don't know what's going on with it right now, but she's been in the middle of a high profile, criminal case with legal repercussions for her. I am sure there's due process. I am sure she's getting advice about what she can say and what she can't say. And so it's just this assumption that she should just be out there, like, expressing this empathy and apologizing and returning earring. It's like, I am sure there are things going on behind the scenes that she has to adhere to.
Yeah.
So that's just never made any sense to me.
Yeah.
Now, again, do I understand that she kind of set herself, look, when she continues to post those photos on Instagram, which to me, again, what I felt off that was just kind of like, oh, you want me to like bow down and play nice? Fuck you, I'm not going to. So like, I kind of got it, you know what I mean? But I also get, look, I'm intuitive. Not everyone's going to be like feeling deeper layers of what's underneath it. I get why people got incensed, but it just was like, look, you guys, you can't, there's due process here and there are legal repercussions, and who the F knows what's going on behind the scenes. Like, you've got to let this play out before you judge how she's handling it.
Due process and discovery, right? Like, that's a really big part of any criminal investigation, legal proceeding, is the discovery. And that's why on camera you hear her say alleged victims, because at that point, everybody and their grandma was coming out and saying that they were a victim, and there needed to be discovery that determined who was a real victim and what does victim even mean. I think so many people were just like, and so many people that just didn't understand like the actual details of everything. I'm somebody that like sat down and went through all the court documents and would talk to lawyers and would have conversations with the victims on camera and off camera. There were hours and hours of conversations that I had with people that were not ever filmed or shared for the podcast or released anywhere, that were just my own discovery process of trying to understand and make sense of this as I would put together my notes and research for presenting, all of the details about it on the podcast. So it's not like my information was just coming from nowhere, but like the discovery process, like that takes time, and everything is alleged until you figure all of that out. And I think as the discovery has gone on, once more of these details start to come to light, I think people are really going to, intelligent people that can put on their thinking cap and use their noggin, will realize that maybe, their treatment of Erika was a little intense and harsh without really realizing all the details. Now that all of the details are starting to come together, there will be new information that will come out that I think will, I don't know if it'll shock people, but hopefully it'll give people a little more clarity on what was really going on.
Well, and you also have to understand too, like, I'm always looking at things, because I come from a spiritual perspective of like pattern in someone's history and the patterns that they lived. And so for me, my sense of Erika, even before all this, like I said, is someone who feels misunderstood and someone who survived and a survivor, and I think that was playing out just even in terms of her marriage to Tom. Like, she's someone who managed, as she's documented on the show, she started out, I forget if she was actually stripping or not, but she was working at that strip club. She made her way up in the world. She is a survivor. She's someone who's been kind of given the middle finger to her haters all along. And so then something like this comes along that just rips the rug out from under her. I mean, I always felt like the real spiritual invitation for her in all of this was to actually kind of go towards the humiliation, go towards the powerlessness, go towards the humility. I think those are all the things she's been scared of in her life. But you got to understand, she has that like fighter in her. I suspect that learned some early lesson that's like, it's not safe for me to drop my guard. It's not safe for me to wield my secret sensitivity. Like, I got to have my guard up. So suddenly she's in this larger in life situation where, at least to some degree, she was betrayed by her husband. The entire world is pointing fingers at her. And, of course, it's going to kick in, like what I was saying, that defiant part of her that's like, oh, shit, you think you're going to get me down? F off. You think I should be saying this? F off. Again, do I think that ultimately served her in the long run in terms of public perception? No, but I get it. I get where she was coming from in terms of a woman who feels like she has to fight to survive and that she's always sort of bracing against being misunderstood. This just felt like a larger than life version of something that I imagine she's been dealing with her entire life.
Yeah, I agree. But listen, I hope that whatever happened over the weekend, that conversation can be a step in the right direction. I think it will be. again, I think more details will come out. I think more people will get more context and a lot of stuff. And I think that that will actually bring hopefully some closure, not necessarily for the victims, because, you know, trauma is something that's, you know, evolutionary and it takes time for people to move through that, should they be willing to. But I also feel like there will be closure to that whole situation. It may take a while for everyone to get locked up, you know, for Tom Girardi to be put behind bars, even if that even happens. But at least for now, it seems to be moving in a positive direction, and it's a good first step for everyone.
Well, I keep wondering if they can sue the state bar. Like, that's who I always feel like they should be suing.
I've asked that question and I've talked to lawyers about that. I mean, they can, but there are certain parameters put in place. And even if they do sue the state bar, there's like a certain limitation that they're allowed to even get entitled to, like compensation wise. Like if they were to sue, they can't sue for like $20 million. I think it's like in the hundreds of thousands that the state bars even legally allowed to issue out with when they get sued per year. So it's not, I mean, the effort into that, I don't know if the return would be worth it.
The last thing I'll say about this too is like, you brought up what, the exchange between Sheree and Garcelle last season. Like, I kind of understood, brings back to Kyle, when people were on her case in wherever that they were in Aspen, right? Or yeah, that's where they were, about like, oh, you should be doing this, or like, yeah, and Kyle saying, I want to defend you, but I can't. Like, again, I mean, Erika took it so far, but I understood the part of her that was saying, like, you want me to, like, they want her to say a certain thing because of how it looks.
Yeah.
You can't convince me that they were in that moment, having a nuanced conversation about the reality of the situation and trying to understand like what was going on. Like, to me, that just felt like a moment where people were aware of what this was going to look like on the show. They were aware of what this was going to look like in public, and they were kind of like positioning themselves in relationship to the optics. So for me, even though everyone was so outraged at Erika and what she was saying, there was this part of me that was like, I get it. Like, I kind of respected the part of her that was just like, you know what? I'm fucking angry. And I'm not going to say what you want me to say.
Because it wasn't coming from a genuine place. They wanted her to say it for the optics and for their own reputation, right? Like, it's like, I can't stand by you if you don't say this certain thing, because if you don't say this certain thing, you're going to look bad. And my association to you is also going to look bad. And I don't want to look bad, you know? And because here's the thing, they all have enough. Who are the two biggest, I mean, aside from Garcelle, the ones that were the most critical of her had the most money: Sutton, Crystal, Kyle.
Mm-hmm.
Who actually did something about it? Diana Jenkins. She put $100,000 into a trust fund, opened up a donation fund for other people to be able to donate. It's like, if you care that much, Crystal Minkoff, where are your fucking earrings? If you care that much, Kyle Richards, why isn't the agency throwing a fundraiser that you think Erika should be throwing? Like, it was just like so much of like, if you guys care so much, then why aren't you doing anything? And it's like, because they didn't know what to do or they couldn't do anything. It's like, okay, great. Now imagine being the one that's being sued. You know what I mean? It's like, there's so many layers to it.
And I think this is actually a great kind of point of illustration, because we're like, and I'm not saying she should have done this in the moment, because it's such a larger than life situation, but Erika unintentionally does herself a disservice when she gets triggered and reacts. And if she could have just sat there and kind of expressed in a way what we're expressing right now of like, look, I don't trust your intentions. I don't feel like you guys have any deeper intention to really understand where I'm coming from. This feels like it's about optics. I feel like then maybe there would have been more understanding from public perception. But I think that, like I said, Erika is just so quick to, she's just got that fighter in her. And especially in this larger than life situation where there's so much on the line, she's just like, fuck you. And then it just keeps the whole cycle of being misunderstood going.
Yeah, where I will fight back on you on that is, I think if she did come at it from that approach, their reaction would have felt judged, and they would have been like, what, you don't think I care about the victims? Like, because they are on this self-righteous high horse, right? They are on this moral superiority. If I were you, I would have given up the earrings, when it's like, like, yeah, I would like to think that if I were in that position, I would have given up the earrings as well. But it's like, I'm not in that position, that I couldn't even imagine what I would do given the scrutiny and the outrage and the cameras on me. Like, none of us know what we would have done, as good of people as we want to believe that we are. Yeah, of course, when we're not in that position and we're in a confessional, we're like, yeah, of course you should give back the earrings. But it's like, what would you really do in that situation? You don't know because you're not in that situation, nor do you even feel the betrayal and deceit from somebody that you love for what they're married for 20 years. Like, come on, like there are so many layers to this.
Well, Beverly Hills is a tough group. This is a group that really goes in, it goes in hard. They don't tend to like to listen. And, you see this with different, it kind of moves around, but like you see, I don't want to get off track, but like, I still think about what happened to Crystal last season. There's a way in which they just attack.
Yeah.
And it can be very hard for me to watch sometimes. It's hard for the group to tolerate a voice that comes in that maybe has a different perspective or is maybe trying to slow the narrative down and say, hey, look, wait, there's something else going on here, and it kind of, the group will pounce on that, especially Kyle. Kyle gets very uncomfortable with things that go against a certain narrative. Like she will shut you down. So yeah.
Let's pivot to Vanderpump Rules. Raquel is supposed to be going back to filming this week. They're going on their trip to Lake Tahoe. She's expected to begin filming. Do you think that she's actually going to be moving forward with this, or what is your read on Raquel?
I mean, again, based on absolutely nothing, just kind of feeling it. I think she's drawn to it. I think she wants to. Look, here's the thing. Raquel's got a fighter in her. I mean, she always did. Even when she was like soft-spoken Raquel, she had her points to make. You know what I mean? She got into it with Lala. Maybe she didn't do it like gracefully, but she's always had a fighter in her. Obviously, she's competitive. We know that now. So I think that glimpse that we really saw at the end of her coming clean about the things that Sandoval was sort of coaching her. I think, look, Raquel's not dumb. I know people like to think she is. I don't think she is. I think that I just get the sense that she understands. There's a bigger picture at work here that I think she can see now. And I have a feeling there's a part of her that wants to come back and be able to say her piece and set some of the records straight. And, if she hopefully has gained deeper insight into the way this all broke down and perhaps ways in which she was susceptible for falling in, which, by the way, this is not to excuse the choices she made. She is responsible for those, of course. But yeah, I have a feeling Raquel's got some stuff to say and wants to say it and probably wants back in the mix to say it.
I think it's more than just wanting something to say. I think she's become enamored with the fame, and I think she wants more money, and I think she's gotten kind of lost in all of that as well. That it'll be interesting to see what version of her we get after 2 months of intensive therapy.
I mean, it's hard, it's like, I do really have compassion for all these people because of, part of me is like, of course she had, like, look, she was humiliated and shamed on a global level. Of course, there's a part of her that wants, so when I say like to have her say, it's like, of course, part of her wants to, I mean, I'm not saying she's going to get vindicated, but like, she wants that opportunity to be vindicated. And like, of course, part of her doesn't just want to walk away from the spotlight and from the TV show just with egg on her face, with everyone else getting the last word. You know what I mean? And of course, so, I get it. Like if it were me, I mean, kind of going back to Erika, it's like, if I were in this situation where I was disgraced, and then let's say I did go on a journey that gave me illumination about what happened, and then I'm seeing like my coworkers sort of proceed forward with the show, I feel like there'd definitely be a part of me that's like, wait, I want back in there. I want to still be in the mix. I want my shot at seeing where this goes.
I don't even think there's a part. I would 1000% come back. I would collect my big paycheck. I would do what she's doing. I would fight for more money. I don't think I would do the whole, let me go into intensive therapy for 2 months and play up the mental health card. Cause I think it's more about, again, I like to compare it to being in a toxic relationship. You don't leave a toxic relationship, go into intensive therapy, and then go back to dating the guy again the second you leave therapy. If it's a toxic environment, then and you're focused on your mental health, then don't go back to the environment that sent you into therapy in the first place. So just fucking own it and say, I want the fame, I want to reclaim the narrative, and I want the money because I deserve the money because I fucked Sandoval and I made this whole thing happen. You're welcome, Lala. You're welcome, Ariana. You're on Dancing with the Stars now because I stole your man.
I mean, I would be thrilled if she came back owning all that. I think it'd be so powerful. I will say, I mean, I agree with you. Like, look,
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot to say here because now, I mean, I almost have to laugh when I see these articles saying, as they're talking about the negotiations with Raquel, and they're like, but her mental health is first and foremost. I'm just sitting there like, give me an effing break. Like, talk about optics. And I'm like, if you really want to talk about, first of all, if you really want to talk about mental health, let's talk about this. You were able to create a situation where the three main players could have one-on-one sit-downs with Andy before the reunion. Why didn't you bring a therapist to start talking with the cast before the reunion so that this reunion wasn't just a huge clusterfuck of like disowned rage and aggression? But also, we're talking about Raquel. Can we talk about the mental health of almost everyone else on that cast? I mean, can we talk about Tom Sandoval's mental health? Can we talk about Tom Schwartz's mental health? I mean, the only two, like James Kennedy's mental health, like you can't, I think I just get so incensed when it's like, it's the virtue signaling. Let's not pretend as Bravo, we're so concerned about Raquel's mental health. If we were really concerned about mental health, we'd be making a lot of different decisions in the situation. But what I will say in terms of Raquel's mental health, while I do agree that probably going back into the fray is maybe not the best for her, the one exception I would say to this is I do really feel like it would be great for her to be able to individuate from her family. And so if this gives her the means, I mean, I don't know where she's at in her journey, but if this gives her the means to be financially independent and to perhaps really individuate from her family, that actually could be great for her. So, maybe there's two sides to the coin.
Yeah, I agree. We'll see what it brings. I'm more and more looking forward to just seeing what happens. Before I was like, we don't need her. Now I'm just like, I'm getting more and more curious just to see what she brings. Like, I want to test the waters and see.
I think she could be a great wild card because she's a free agent at this point. It's like if she's sort of caught on to ways that Tom Sandoval lied to her, I just think she's a wild card. And I think also in the place where the group there's a lot of group think. I think she could come in and disrupt things. People might think this is crazy. I could envision a world where Lala kind of decides to, I don't know, have compassion for Raquel, take her under her wing.
I 1000% see that. The only one that can bring her back into the group is Lala, and they would band together about fuck these men because she had Randall that was terrible, and Raquel had Sandoval who was, grooming her, and they have a common enemy of like, anti-men. I can see them throwing that whole situation together.
And they know they have to look, this cast is savvy. They know they have to make it. So, we'll see. I'm curious to see what happens.
Okay, Jamie, do you think should you read me? Should we do a little inner work right now and let people workshop all of this? They can see what they would be getting if they decide to book a reading with you.
Yeah, it's up to you. I'm game if you are.
I feel like I've always been so open and honest on the show. So even though I'm like super nervous about what could possibly come up, I can't host a show called #NoFilter and expect other people's lives to be talked about and not be willing to do a little inner self-reflection like Raquel, myself.
This is your 2 months in
this will be my 2 months of intensive therapy.
We'll get a name change out of this.
I'm good. Okay, so what do you need from me to read me?
Well, I always like people to come with questions. So
Okay.
If you have like a specific question you want to ask about your life or an area of your life, what you're creating, what you want to create.
Okay. I feel like I'm somebody that always likes to do like some inner work and some inner self-reflection. But I know that sometimes maybe there are some subconscious blocks that we set up for ourselves. I think, my career's in a really good place. I would kind of like to see where that will continue to go, but I also nervously am a little curious about even my love life at the moment. Are there any sort of blocks that you can kind of see that maybe I'm not fully aware of myself that maybe I can work on to, move through those?
Yeah, with you, I do get drawn to your love life for whatever reason. That's sort of where I've gone. And then as I say that, you see like my jaw's immediately tensing. Yeah, I start to tense up. Like there's something in me here that kind of braces. So let me kind of just drop into this for a second. Like, yeah, it's like, I mean, you see what I'm doing. It's like, yes, no, yes, no. It's like, I feel this part of you. It's like, I want it. Like, I want the intimate connection, but there's a part, I mean, it's kind of almost a little bit like what we're talking about with Erika. There's a part of me, it's like, you know, like back off, like watch out. Like, it just feels kind of like, not a total willingness to trust. Like it's hard to trust. It's hard to drop the guard. And it's like, and that actually, yeah, there's something about dropping the guard. So this is what I'll say, Zach. You know, and maybe this will kind of weave things together with work too. I mean, my impression of you both, just feeling you energetically, but also, of course, like, you know, following you on Instagram. It's like you are I mean, look at what you make things happen. Like you've got a force of will in you. You make it happen. You make it happen, honey. Like that's kind of like the voice that comes through. And it's great. It drives success for you, but it's like, I feel it. I feel like the force of will. I feel the fighter. And it's like, I'm going. And so I do think actually like the two questions are connected. It's like when you talk about your inner work, and I think you're going to keep going towards success. So it's not like I think you're going to block yourself from succeeding. But if we're talking about like deepest capacity for success, and I would say not even just professionally, but like, you know, you strike me as someone, you are clearly like spiritually inclined, and I think you have interests that are above and beyond just like material success. I think there is something about what it's going to mean for you to find the right places to like truly let your guard down, because it almost kind of feels like I've made this happen by my force of will. And it's like, I overcame certain things, and it's not that I did this in spite of myself, but like I made it happen. I made new choices. And it's almost like you want to leave that other part of you behind, but it's almost like, no, wait, there's something there for you. Like there's something, it's almost like even hard to say the word, like my whole body tenses up, like gentler. There's something that's like tender. And it's like what it would mean for you. It's almost like, I mean, this is just me spitballing, and I'll check with you in a second, but it's like, I feel like some earlier part of me like let myself down. And so I don't trust that part of me. I trust the part of me that like picked myself up, you know what I mean, and made this all happen. But it's almost like, and it's like a fear. It's like if I sort of put this down, if I drop my guard, well, I mean, one, it's like where I could get hurt. And yeah, like that guy, that boy over there, he let me down, he hurt me, he got me into trouble, and I don't want to go down that road again. Not sort of knowing there's something there for you that feels like, yeah, connected to your heart. Does this make sense?
Yes. It's funny because I feel like I found myself in situations recently where people have kind of like they're like, you're not letting your guard down. You don't allow yourself to like fully be vulnerable, or just not even vulnerability. Cause I feel like on a public platform, I can be vulnerable, but on a more intimate level, it's hard for me to let somebody in. To be fair, I feel like the last 5 or 6 years, I mean, listen, I live in LA, I work in the entertainment world, that it's just like, you get a lot of people that use you, or, you know, if you in any sort of way, like when I love people, I have a very strong capacity to love, and I will build my friends up and give and give and give so much of myself, not with an expectation of getting anything back, but just because I know how hard it is, especially in LA, that like I want to build people up, and I will give so much of myself, but I will not allow anybody else to really be there for me. And so I have felt some of that resistance from other people, that they're like, why won't you just allow that to happen for yourself, or let me in? And I'm just like, one, I want people to understand that like I've been so burned and backstabbed and fucked over in like ways that I haven't talked about over the last 5 years. Like some people know like some of my fallouts with like friends recently, but like I've trusted people, and I've trusted guys, and I've, you know, people that I loved that I thought would really still be such an important part of my life to this day that are not, because they made choices that, and I get it. People have their own ambitions or, their own needs that need to be met, or when they're going through something challenging, there's that scarcity mentality where they feel the need to protect themselves. So that loyalty isn't necessarily warranted to other people. But I feel like I've been through it the past few years that I find myself tensing up a lot more and being resistant towards letting people in. I can be an incredible friend. I will go above and beyond for the people that I love, but I will take on all of my own shit because I know I can count on myself to get through my shit.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a lot here to say. You're kind of confirming everything I was feeling. I want to say to you, Zack, I actually feel for you in particular. There really is something around discernment. Like I don't, for me, this isn't like an invitation of like, you're supposed to walk around through the world with like your kind of most surrendered vulnerability available for everyone. And I actually feel like where it wants to live is specifically in intimate relationship. And so I feel like the way that you operate is great for your work. I feel like it's great for your business. I think it's great for like even navigating the world, because what I'm actually getting in this moment is that you're actually quite sensitive, and I think you take a lot in. So it actually in some ways feels like a good energetic shield for you if you're wielding it consciously. So there's a difference between like just sort of giving unconsciously and then sort of being burnt out versus I consciously discern with whom I share these sort of tender parts of me. And if you're not that person, like I'm kind of like, yeah, I'll give to you. I'm staying in control. This is how I consciously protect myself so that there's safety when I choose in the right situation, who to open up to. But then what I also want to say about that is like, I want to say, and this comes up a lot with clients, but I want to say it to you, it feels like a really big deal for you to really let someone in and receive. And like I said, it really does feel like, so even if your friends, for example, are like, oh, Zack, why don't you just let your guard down? It's almost like the answer I feel is like, you know what, like I hear you. And actually, this is actually a really huge deal for me. It's not easy for me just to like do it like that.
No, I'll be honest, I don't want to let anybody in right now. I feel like the wall has come up and there's like a big ironclad lock, and I don't know how or when I can bring that down. So if you have any advice for me, I'm open to receiving that, because I feel like that's probably the information that I need to receive right now, because I don't want to continue that, because I don't want to have that hardness to me. I want to be able to let that guard down a little bit when I feel like I can, do that. I just never want to do that.
I feel, so this is what I also want to say. It's like, so again, I'm always talking about in terms of pattern. I think we draw in situations that are energetically familiar to patterns that were set earlier on. That's how we hopefully sort of grow and evolve in these lifetimes, as we have these opportunities to perhaps do things differently. So for me, even though I hear stuff happen in the last 5 years, if we were really kind of exploring together, I'd start getting curious about like earlier in life. And I do feel like what I feel here gets disowned is that kind of like, it's almost like there needs to be space for that voice that is saying, fuck no, I will never let my guard down, and really understanding, because it feels like there's a deep level of self-protective rage there. Which, by the way, some people get self-conscious when I talk about anger. There's like a stigma around that. We all have anger. I think anger is great. Anger is healthy. So, and when I feel powerful rage in someone, to me, that's a testament to you have a powerful life force. You have like powerful feelings that want to come through. So I feel it in you, Zack. Like there is a rage in there that is like, fuck no. And so I think for you, I would just start getting curious about just, the early places where you learn it is not safe for me to let my guard down, the rage that wants to be seen and heard and witnessed, even if that's just in relationship to yourself at first, because it's almost like, I say this with people all the time, if there's a part of us that's saying no, it's like you can't, it's like trying to get someone who's scared of heights to get them to just like jump off a cliff. Like they're like, you're not gonna like just throw them off the cliff. They're gonna resist. Like they need space for their voice, for their fear to be heard. So if you in general, because there's so many people out here like this, if you have a voice in you that's like, fuck no, I am not dropping my guard. It is not safe. Fuck you for trying to get in. That voice, it needs to be seen and heard. It's got something to say. And so I just kind of feel like maybe if I were you, I'd almost like take the demand off yourself to be any different. I'd almost take the demand off to be in like loving relationship, and maybe just start with really, like, if I take seriously this idea that there was some sort of like early experience around an experience of like getting her, I mean, I'm hearing the word betrayal, actually, like being betrayed, like heart getting stomped on, what sort of really needs and wants to be seen and heard there, and then moving really slowly. I don't think this is like a quick, like, okay, the switch flipped. Like, I really feel like this is what I want to say. There's something in you that really needs slow, gentle care. Like whatever that is beneath the guard, it needs slow, gentle care. So I don't know sort of what's going on with you and guys, what happens when you date, what happens when you get intimate. These are sort of, again, deeper conversations, perhaps for another time, but it's like, I just want to say, like, for you, I just wouldn't want you to rush into anything. And I'd want you to have time and space for two things in relationship to a guy. One, the part of you that will have your guard up and says, hey, just so you know, like, I take my time, like, it is really hard for me to trust. This is vulnerable for me. And then going really slowly with that vulnerable part of you. And I mean, do you want me to just say one last thing?
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's also something very specific around like physical intimacy and sexual intimacy and what it might mean for you to actually go slowly there and to really take someone in there and to really receive there. Like, I want to say, like, not overriding it, not jumping into something. I mean, that's fine if you want to have quote unquote fun, but I feel for you, there's actually some, even though I'm saying it, my chest is bracing, there would be something about exploring what it would mean to really slow down there in relationship to a guy, letting yourself receive slowly and intimately, that I think might bring up a bunch of stuff in a healthy way.
Yeah, I also kind of feel like lately I've been a little more out of touch, even with my own sexuality, to the point where like I don't feel physically attractive. And I know that's weird when people say it and they think I'm fishing for compliments, but like that's just me being honest. And like I'm not looking for compliments and saying that. So please, nobody DM me being like, but you're pretty, whatever. I'm not saying that because I'm looking for any sort of validation. I'm just saying that that's where I'm at right now. And I feel like even when it comes to being physically intimate with anybody, like I feel like I have a hard time even going there right now and having any sort of physical intimacy, because I just don't feel like, I feel like I need to have a connection with somebody first right now, which is very different, that I feel like has changed recently.
Well, great. I love what you're saying, because you're kind of confirming exactly what I'm saying, which is like, I feel this feeling for you, like you need intimacy and not to override that. And what I would say to you, because I hear you kind of asking, how do I explore this for myself? And so it's almost like, what I always say to people, start with what's right here. So if I hear you saying, I don't feel attractive and there's a part of me that's been staying away from intimacy, I might encourage you, like, dedicate time, sit down, start writing about that. What is it in you right now that's saying no to intimacy, and why? In what way are you feeling unattractive? Just start letting yourself, I feel like there's actually wisdom in these voices in you right now. Like, what I hear you saying is like, there's something in me that doesn't want to do the usual thing. I'm feeling something in me emerge that wants sort of a deeper level of like connection with self and with other. It's probably why you're asking me these questions right now. And this is why the information's coming. Something in you is ready to, like, you're getting confirmation of, I think, what your impulses have already been leading you toward. So I just kind of want to invite you to like, trust this, slow the F down. There's no rush to get anywhere. And like I said, start with what's here. Start with that part of you that's saying, I don't want to like yeah, I don't want to rush into intimacy right now. And like I said, like, why? What's there? And I have a feeling that might start giving you hits on like what you actually want. And then that might start giving you hits on the voices in you that are scared to ask for what you want, but you just want to kind of undertake this as a path of exploration. And I guess what I hear you saying, just as a reflection, is that there is a part of you that's like, I am becoming aware very much so that there is something in me I'm protecting. And I'm becoming aware that there's something in me that wants to find the right space and safety to like explore whatever it is I'm protecting. And what I, Jamie, am saying to you is like, it's not going to come from like a severe demand you have on yourself. It's not going to come from racing to the answer. It is going to come, I think, from like gentle care and giving space to both the rage and what's underneath the rage. So I think you're in an exciting place of exploration, actually.
I'm such a ball buster. I like to get right to the point. I'm like, tell me what to do and I'm going to do it. And I'm going to do the work that I'm going to go to the gym this weekend and get it done.
Well, that's what I was saying. So like, that's the connection to what I was saying at the beginning. Like you've got this driving force and I think there's a way it serves you, but I think there's a way it also skips over this other piece, that like this little seedling of this thing that you're protecting. And so that's why I'm saying, I think the work for you right now is finding those ways and places to, you know, we could say drop the guard, slow down, not be in a rush. And by the way, that might enrage you, which is great. Sit down and write about that rage, because that's part of the defense system that's in place right now. But what I want to tell, so what I'm saying is, I don't think there's anything wrong with the part of Zack that goes for it. I think it serves you well in many different ways. But if you're asking about the deeper level of unlocking and healing and sort of life and inner work, I think it's about dropping underneath that and finding that really sort of gentle part of you that wants to receive, that you're protecting, and how to work with it. Does that all make sense?
It does make sense. And I'm glad that I really wanted to go into this conversation, talk about like, what is like my career going to look like and how do I work on that? But I think in my gut, I know my career's fine. Work-wise, I'm fine. Everything is great and everything is continuing to blossom and flourish there. And like the area that I should be focused on, I worked hard enough on my career. It's fine. It's going. But I feel like the part of me that I need to work on is kind of like that interpersonal piece.
Well, again, and you understand, like, again, you're actually speaking to the very thing I'm talking about. Like, there's a part of you that just wants to like forge ahead with the thing. And that's the thing. I think it's time now, like you've got that covered. And like you're saying, yes, your career is going fine. It's always going to go fine. Now it's kind of about like, what is that in you that just wants to drive.
Jamie, thank you. Where can people go if they want to book their own reading with you now that they've gotten a little insight into my own life?
Yeah, if you're curious about my work, you can definitely check out my website, hollywoodreadings.com, and read more about it. You can email me there. And of course, follow me on Instagram, Jamie Stein, JAMIESTEIN. I do create a lot of Housewives related content there. And also my podcast. I have a podcast, Deep Dive with Jamie Stein, as you mentioned up top. So I do deep intuitive takes on all things Bravo, sometimes other pop culture items as well.
You'll need to come back on next time there's another big juicy scandal that we need to dissect.
My pleasure. And just let me know and I'll make it happen.
Yes, guys, go subscribe to the podcast. Follow him on Instagram. He has really good Instagram reels that he puts out that are snippets of his podcast. So go and tune in. He did an episode recently on Kyle and Mauricio that like really gets into them individually in their relationship. And I thought there was a lot of good takeaways that were in that reading. Even though you were reading them, I think a lot of people were able to relate to a lot of those things, even in their own lives, which I think is so great about your podcast, is that there are pieces that people can find in your coverage of these reality stars or these celebrities that I think people can relate to, that I think also humanizes them and gives us as an audience a deeper appreciation for them. So guys,
that's ultimately my intention. It's like, let's use this to kind of like, see our own humanity rather than, like you were saying at the beginning, like teams, blame, pointing fingers, shaming people. It's like, this doesn't really get any of us anywhere. and we're all human beings. So there's a reason why we watch these shows. It's humanity. Like, we're all connected.
Exactly. And it's like we can indulge in the celebrity pop culture fun of it while also having deep, real conversations.
Exactly.
So go listen to Jamie's podcast. Give him a follow. It's Jamie Stein. You guys can keep up with me at Just Plain Zack or follow the podcast at No Filter with Zack. And stay tuned, guys. New episodes coming soon. All right. Talk to you later. Bye.